the Carolina Hurricanes have been playing so well and overcoming the bumps in the road so smoothly. They have great suspension on their ride. One might accuse them of being boring, which is a compliment, but one might accuse them of being boring. I just so everybody knows, your feedback that reaches us, right? Your comments on YouTube, the emails you send, the tweets you send, they stick with me in a lot of ways. And I went back and forth with a fan, with a listener, I should say, who thought I was making too big a deal out of the adversity the Canes have faced this season. Thought I was kind of Chicken Little, right? Running around saying doom and gloom, all this stuff they had to overcome. In the process, the listener may have insulted a few players from last year's team. Basically like, Shea Pesci, no good. They're not hard to replace.
Jake Ensel's a jackwagon.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, whoa, Nason, so he was a fan favorite. It's like, I could have argued there, but instead, like I said, it sticks with me. It rattles around in my brain. After I got through, like, I think you're being kind of mean to Brett Pesci, I got to the other side of the argument, which was a fair point, right? I do point out everything they're dealing with this season. I do point out how difficult it is to deal with two goalies being injured at the same time. I do point out how difficult it is when your leading point scorer over the last however many years is having a little bit of a goal-scoring slowdown to start the season. I do point out when you're on a 6-game road trip and it's caused by the state fair and you're going to be gone forever at the beginning of a season. I do point it out. And his argument was basically that these things I'm pointing out and making mountains out of are really molehills. Right, every team in the league deals with bumps on the road, like a stud forward, and similar to Seth Jarvis, missing a week or two. Right, most teams end up playing 3 goalies at least by the end of the season. Players go through scoring slumps. Teams go on road trips. None of that is news. And like I said, it rattles around in the brain. I'm going like, all right, that's a good point. Right, sometimes you just look at the person you're arguing with and you go, all right, good point there. But if you're me, unfortunately, you can rarely just walk away. You need to get the last word in. You can ask my wife. She knows my arguing style. First of all, with that logic, it would be really bad radio and really boring conversation, even if we weren't on radio, to just say every team deals with bumps and bruises. This team is good. They'll deal with it. We'll check back in with you in April. Right, like, this is a good team with a good culture and good players, and most of the core is back from last year, and Rod Brind'Amour is still there, so they're going to be, in the mix come mid-April. Why don't you go talk to us then? That'd be a really boring way to handle this season, right? We're fans. We want to pay attention. We want things to lock onto, and that's where the second of all comes from. I believe, and this, I'm not a motivational speaker. No one will kind of confuse me for like Tony Robbins or one of those social media Instagram, I'm going to get you to change the way you think about life people. But I do believe, at least in part, to how you deal with anything is how you deal with everything. How you deal with small adversities informs how you deal with big adversities. It's why, and every single time we have anyone on the show that is involved with any kind of nonprofit or organization that is benefiting youth sports, I go over the top making sure I praise them. And it's because I believe you learn how to deal with adversity in youth sports, right? If how do you deal with it when your best player gets hurt in Little League? How do you deal with it when the umpire gives you a bad call on the Pop Warner field? Teaches you how you, or exposes you to how you deal with adversity. So when you get older and it's a bad call, but you lost your job, or it's a team sport and someone you were depending on didn't show up, right? It's a big presentation. The things you learn off the little adversities that in this big picture may seem like nothing inform how you react to the big adversities. So to put this in a one-season scenario here, in a one-season example, how you deal with Spencer Martin being forced into action in November is an indicator of how you will deal with being down 2-0 in a playoff series and going on the road. right? How you deal with Sebastian Aho having a bit of a scoring drought, right? And he's still producing points, not at the level you'd hope, but he's still producing points, not scoring even strength goals nearly as often as you'd want. How you deal with that now could be an indicator on how you might deal with a Sebastian Aho, knock on wood for you superstitious people out there, injury when the games do matter a little bit more. So a game like tonight, they're playing against Philly. Philly isn't anything to write home about. They're not the worst, but the Canes have been playing a lot of middle-of-the-road teams recently. Right? They're not anything to write home about. They give up the fourth most goals per game in the NHL, so they can be had as far as you can go score against them. But they did take you to the wire a couple weeks ago. Remember that? Remember you had your multi-goal lead, and then the wheels kind of came off there. You blacked out, and you came to, and it was 4-4 in the third.
And Nate just scored with 30 seconds left?
Nate just bailed you out with 30 seconds left. And then you picked up an empty netter to make it look like you were in control the whole time. Nothing to see here. That's a good example. You learned something about your team there. You learned something about your team in a game like that against a team like Philly, who isn't anything to write home about. Now, if they lost that game, or if they lose tonight, I think the emailer I was talking about would argue everybody's going to lose games. You play 80 of them. A little bit more. Right? Everybody's gonna lose 30. Everybody's going to win 30. It's what you do with the middle ones that matter. Or 20-20, whatever the math you want to do. Dropping a game, it's not the end of the world, but you can learn something about yourself. And when it comes to the Canes, we're always judging them off of the bar set by the Canes. I'm not sitting here saying like, oh my gosh, if they don't deal with the Jarvis injury well, they're going to be the 7th team in the division. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if they don't deal with the Jarvis injury well, maybe they won't make it to the second round of the playoffs. Maybe they won't make it to the conference finals. Maybe that's the indicator of something that's been holding them back over the last 5 years. So much, and I emphasized this last year more so than this year because I do think there was a lot of unknown this year. But you can go back and find the audio. Last season, from the opening puck drop of the season, I was saying the Canes can't teach me anything in the regular season. Can't prove to me anything. There's no victory laps being taken in the regular season. It's all about what they do in the postseason. I think it's similar to a team like the Buffalo Bills in the NFL. What do you want to accomplish? You want to be a 1 seed? You want to be a 2 seed? You've done it. What do you want to do? Be an MVP candidate? You've done it, Josh Allen. The thing you need to do is get over the hump, make it to the Super Bowl. If you're looking at the Canes, what do you want to do? What do you want? You want to get the most points? What do you want to do? You want to be the betting favorite? What do you want to? No, you want to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. So that's what we're judging you off of. And anybody that's been in any kind of team sport knows that a pebble in the shoe, right? Just a little something's off there in November. If you fix it, it's nothing. It's boring, right? Oh, look at that. They fixed it. Cool. But if you don't, it grows and it grows and it grows and it grows. And then by the end of the season, it can be the thing that does you in. So I'm not sounding any alarms, but I'm talking about the Canes as if they're chasing big and lofty goals. I'm not sounding alarms because, Kochetkov needed a day off in the middle of November. Because he tweaked something while doing his crazy flailing in front of the net that he gets into sometimes. But me and Dennis had a long conversation. We're going to have one tomorrow about how they handle the goalie position moving forward. And do they need to go into the trade world? And all of that is informed by what's happened the last week. Yeah, they're playing well. They're boring. There's something you can learn inside of that boring that may make or break the rest of the year.